I said, I need to talk to them about this, whether they've been in my life or not, whether or not they agree. They didn't have to agree. They didn't agree with me covering my head. They didn't agree with me covering my body, my parts. They didn't agree with that. Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatimah, Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of the book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored. So, y'all, I decided to do a story time, and this story time, it just speaks to my heart for a few reasons. One, well, the story time is this. It's polygyny and when I had to break the news to my parents. Now, my parents are pretty easygoing. Well, my mother and my father both are. My mother is, my father's passed in 2013. He was not Muslim, although my dad was a ladies' man, so he understood a lot of things that I didn't understand, like the the need for men, some men to want to practice polygyny or have so much space in their hearts for more than one woman. And when I had to tell him, now let me back on up here, but both my parents are extroverts. They're both very funny. I know that's where I get it from. My mother's hilarious. My father was hilarious. And I think they were very similar. And maybe that's why they did not get along always. And my dad had him wondering, we gonna say what it is, because it is what it is. And he was who he was. So yes, he did have that. And they weren't gonna make it. They just weren't going to make it. I think it was over before it even began. And that's okay. They were a chapter in each other's book, and that was it. So, yeah. Anywho, they broke up when I was 3, and I was ultimately raised by my paternal grandparents. Now, let's get on into this story time. My dad was in the hospital, and he was very sick, but he was up, he was talking. He was one of those. He had a heart full of disease. He had different vices, and he was a very educated person. But I think I know in my heart that my sister passing away in 2001 just really sent him over the edge with his alcoholism, and that's what ultimately killed him. Um, so I knew it would get worse after that. I just did. I just, as the second oldest, knew it. And she was much younger than me. She was 13 when she passed. And she passed 2 weeks before her birthday. So it's deep, y'all. It's really a deep story. So I told my dad, and at that time I had lost a considerable amount of weight. I was an emotional non-eater. I still am. And, but it's a difference when you feel a way and you don't eat versus when you're trying to be healthy, right? So I was very tiny, unhealthy, at an unhealthy weight. And he told me, my dad was holding my hand and told me, he said, you know what, that's great and all that he married again. He didn't like that, but he understood it. But he said, I'm concerned about you. Now, this man got a chest full of leads or patches to monitor his heart. But I had to talk to him at that time because my dad was very reclusive. I didn't know, he'd be here 1 minute, gone the next. It was not an ideal atmosphere, but it was necessary. I think he already knew, because I think my paternal grandmother, his mother, had actually told him, and he was just waiting for me to say it. And he had been knowing my husband since he was 14, so he understood it. He didn't look stunned. He didn't look shocked. He didn't, none of that. He just was like, yeah, okay, I'm more concerned about you. We were concerned about each other. But my dad's heart disease had advanced a considerable amount. But like I said, he was up. And let me tell y'all something real quick. You know what he did? My father left the hospital because they weren't playing the Badger game from the state that we come from. We didn't know where he went. He had caught a cat, took the leads off, took these stickers off his body for his EKG, took them off, hopped in the cab, and left. I said, well, now I wonder who's worried about who. Because I'm like, oh, I'm worried about your mental health. You leave a hospital full of, my dad had a really bad, severe heart disease, and it had advanced over 30 something years. So the heartbreak, alcoholism, the stress, all that stuff, it just tore him up. And he didn't have the willingness to, he was like, look, he told us to bury him with his bottle. And I said, well, you better ask somebody else, baby, because I'm not doing that. I wasn't going to do that. And my mother, I told her, and she was shocked. I don't think she was shocked and appalled. I just think she was shocked. And she said, well, I'm glad you told me. She said, because if I had saw them together, and she's matured a lot. This is not my younger mom. My younger mom would have probably acted a fool and caused a scene, but this mom that had went through different levels of maturity, worked on herself, and worked through her own heartbreak and vices and different things too. She just was like, I'm glad you told me. I really am, because I wouldn't have known what was going on. And knowing her, she would have been like, hold up. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, you gonna tell me what's up. And I'm not saying she had the right to. I'm not saying that anyone has the right to cause a scene on the street and they see somebody. And I'll tell you why. A very close friend of mine, I sat her down, told her at her house, and she said, you know what? Fatima, I wouldn't have thought nothing of it. I just would have thought she was another wife. I just would have thought she was one of your daughters. I just would have thought she was more in the benefit of the doubt. And she's Muslim, so she really understood so much. She still understands so much, and she gets it, and it's okay. It just so it just depends on who's receiving the information and what trauma and triggers they have, and what they feel like loyalty to you looks like. You know. Um, but both my parents, although they didn't talk, they've been a funeral, maybe my grandfather's funeral, my dad's, my paternal grandfather's funeral, where they saw each other, hugged each other. That was weird for me because I never saw them hug each other. After his death, that was it. But they both, interestingly enough, they both said, as long as you're okay, I'm okay. They both said that to me. So it was all how I was handling things. They didn't talk much about my husband. He was not a factor. They were more concerned about their child and how is it, because you can't do nothing with the grown people. See, we can't do nothing with him, but we want to talk about you. Neither one of them had me in their home for a very long period of time. I was raised by my grandparents. But as me being their child, they were like, look, now this just went to DEFCON Delta. This just got serious. And I'm sure they had all this stuff going on in their head. But they knew I was grown. They knew I was an adult, and I was married, and I had never raised my children alone. And our husband, and at the time, my husband had always been there, had always had my back, always. So they had no reason to think he would just dump me off after marrying again. And they knew this was part of our Islamic culture. They was like, look, this is y'all Muslim, like I know, but it was more this sucks for you kind of thing. But they were concerned about my response to it and my health and all those things like that. So I love how they both said, he's grown, but I'm concerned about what you're gonna do. What do you want to do? How are you feeling? Those things. So it was not easy, but I said, I need to talk to them about this, whether they've been in my life or not. whether or not they agree. They didn't have to agree. They didn't agree with me covering my head. They didn't agree with me covering my body, my parts. They didn't agree with that. My dad said to me once, he said, "It's a shame you have to cover yourself like this." I said, "Well, you know, the beauty of it is that you get to see me uncovered. So we're going to embrace that, right? Because you're my father. You wanted to bless people to see me uncovered. Now, maybe other people, you know, in the world with the sick mind want to unwrap covered women like a candy bar. I don't know. But my father, I had to change the communication. I had to change what he was saying to himself about me being Muslim. Just, he said, "There's so many rules, I couldn't, you know." And I said, "Well, honey, you have difficulty, and I love you with the rules in your own religion. So, you know, I get that." You know, we would laugh because we all were comedians, you know. So I love the fact that I was able to say in my darkest moments and my hardest moments, because it was not easy to sit there, watch him be sick and full of tubes and knowing he was in there eating what he shouldn't eat, because I did see a Popeyes box under his bed. I'm like, "You are ridiculous. You're not supposed to be eating this stuff." But it wasn't easy to do, but it was necessary. So that's why I tell and teach and coach and train about sometimes what we have to communicate to our loved ones is not easy, but it's necessary. Whatever time you choose to do it, I knew I didn't have much time with him because his doctor had reached a point where the doctor literally said, "Do you want to die?" Your doctor say to you, "Do you want to die?" Look, I done tried everything, but you just don't want to live. And he didn't want to. He didn't want to. I knew that. I knew he was done. Miss him, but his book is closed. But before it closed, I said, "Now we gonna talk about this." And we did. And I hugged him, and he hugged me. And that was it. My parents left me alone. You know, one guy tried my mother at work. I said, one guy, because he knew us in the community. He said, "Oh, I heard your son-in-law got married again, and I saw them." And woo, woo. My mother said, "Oh, next time tell him I said hey." So, you know, he wanted this huge reaction. He ain't gonna get it. My mother's too stubborn for that, and she just wasn't gonna play the game. She wasn't gonna play the game because there was no reason for him to even tell her that. They were in their work environment. He didn't need to. I think he's trying to stir her pot up. Couldn't stir it up. Maybe that's where I get. I don't know, but yeah. So yes, have the necessary difficult conversations. They're worth it. It takes so much stress off of what's going on, and it gives people clarity. And I talk about that, and I train about it a lot because that stuff matters. My parents needed clarity. Now, whether or not they're deserving of it, whether or not they earned it, whatever, they're my parents. That's who I got. I couldn't send them back if I tried, but they listened to me. They knew I was an adult. I made a decision, and I was staying with my husband, still gonna stay with my husband. And my mother, she's the one that is still alive, and she checks in on us. "How y'all doing? How's Nazir doing?" You know, she might not ask about my co-wife, but she does understand that I have a co-wife that's kind. You know, and I love that. I really do love it because I like being able to give someone a genuine compliment. I love that. And I liked so much to be able to say she's a good person. She's not a bad person. I know you want her to be, but she's not. So yeah, shout out to my moms for that. But anywho, and my awesome co-wife, Coach Nyla. I'm gonna wrap this video up, guys. I hope you got some gems, but before I do, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and put in the comments if you've made it this far. Congratulations. Place in the comments, have the hard conversations, or you could put hard conversations matter. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculous, but you know, it's what it is, y'all. So yeah, make sure you're following us on our social media platforms at Outstanding Personal Relationships on Facebook and YouTube, and Outstanding Relationships on IG. And if you want to know more about what we do and get more details on our coaching and counseling, please visit outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/store. And I'm going to leave you with a little GLC the GLC that I promised. Make sure you're growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting on a higher level every single day. And reach out to your parents, guys. So make a peace.
Here are 3 ways Outstanding Personal Relationships can help you.
Make sure you guys are following us on our social medias at Outstanding Personal Relationships on YouTube and Facebook, and on IG at Outstanding Relationships.
And make sure you sign up for our email list. And you can actually email us at support@Outstanding Personal Relationships, where you will get updates on our new book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored, as well as exclusive access to our lives and bonuses.
Absolutely. If you're looking for more polygyny education, make sure you visit polygamymasterclass.com. Now, if you're looking for coaching or counseling with either Coach Fatimah or Coach Nyla, you can find them at.
Make sure you visit me at CoachFatimah.com.
And myself at CoachNyla.com.
That's how we can help you. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.